Yes, let us remain standing for a word of prayer. We are going to be led by Associate Professor Sylvia Antonia Nanyonga Tamsuza. We are thankful to God. Thus far, He has brought all of us the gift of life, blessings, but also the fruitful career journey for Professor Edward Bbaale. You're most welcome. Let us humble ourselves for a word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we just want to glorify you. We want to worship you. We want to exalt you. Father, we know that without you, Professor Bbaale would not be who he is. We can now declare and say that this far you've brought him. Indeed, Ebenezer. Even in our local language, we say, Ntete sima ebulajiwa, that if we do not appreciate, you will not get someone to give you something. So we want to bless your name. We want to glorify you. Thank you so much for all those people that he has moved with this journey. We want to thank you for Makerere University that has allowed him to become the person you created him to be. We cannot take this for granted because we know all good things come from you. Father, today we are testifying, as you say in your word in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, that you have the best plans for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us. Thank you, Father, that you've not harmed Professor Bbaale, but you've raised him from the ground and you have exalted him. We come before you to exalt you and glorify you and worship you. Thank you, Lord, for his family and all the children that have stood with him through all this journey. We know it's not an easy journey without you. And we want to thank you, Lord, that you gave him the choice to choose to serve you, even when he has risen so high. We bless your name. We exalt you. In Jesus Christ's name, I've prayed with thanksgiving and praise. Tukutendereza Yesu, Yesu oli mwana gwandiko, omusai gwo gunaziza, nebaza Yesu omulokozi.
Amen, 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 amen. I'm going to humbly request the people at the high table to remain standing. The rest of us kindly take your seats. It is rare for people at the high table to remain standing, but this is because we are here for a special day. This is the day the Lord has made for Professor Edward Bbaale. Yes, I'm going to request, when I introduce the person I introduce, I'm going to humbly request you to wave to the audience and you take your seats. With us, we have the Academic Registrar of Makerere University, Mr. Alfred Masiche Namoa. We also have Professor Elizabeth, the chairperson of the Professorial Lectures Organizing Committee. We have Professor Umal Kakumba, the first Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs. Kindly take your seat. Now, the good thing, all the people at the high table have masks on. For a moment, I'm going to humbly request you, Professor Edward Bbaale, so that people know who really is in front of them, yes? And, okay, you didn't even wait for me, all right. So that is Professor Edward Bbaale. He's a professor of economics. We are gathered here because of him. He's intelligent, healthy, handsome, yes, and kind, loving, but also we are gathered here because of him, and I'm glad that many of you have come to witness this occasion, but he's also a mentor, and he has mentored a number of people in the College of Business and Management Sciences, but also students from other colleges, friends, and humanity at large. He has a contribution that he has made, and we are going to listen to all those good words. I'm also humbled, Professor Edward Bbaale, as you're still standing, that in the audience, I think I see your family members. I see some of the religious leaders, I think the church where you pray from. So I'm just humbly requesting the family members, the children, kindly stand up and wave to Professor Edward Bbaale. It's a special day for him. Nsabako bamama, abazadde, abaana, ab'emikwano, kati ffe abalala tubakutireko mu ngalo. Okay, you can take your seats. Yes, and Professor Edward Bbaale, kindly also take your seat. Yes, this is a physical event and also virtual. This event is organized by the Office of the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, supported by the committee, that's the Professorial Inaugural Lectures Organizing Committee, with also a very able secretariat from the Office of the DVC Academic Affairs, Academic Registrars Department, Public Relations Office, and the Communication Office for the College of Business and Management Sciences. Allow me to also humbly recognize Professor Elia Hisali, the Principal, College of Business and Management Sciences. You're welcome. In the interest of time, let me just go through the protocol. With us, we have members of Makerere University Council present, physical and virtual. We have members of the university management, physical and virtual. We have religious leaders amidst us. We have professors, associate professors, senior lecturers, and academic staff, physical and virtual. We have administrative and support staff of Makerere University. We also welcome in a very special way the family members of Professor Edward Bbaale. We have the media ably represented, and I will later on keep on following the protocol. Allow me to humbly invite Professor Elizabeth, the chairperson, Professorial Inaugural Lectures Organizing Committee, to speak to us, and he'll also ably introduce the members of his committee. Kindly welcome Professor Sabit.
Thank you, Master Ceremonies. I don't know whether you can allow me to remove my mask. I think the distance is good enough. And besides, I want you to see me so that we start our business properly. I don't know whether members of my committee are around. Can I ask them? Professor Chibinga brought sent apologies because he has a broken foot. The other one is Professor Windsor and Professor Mayanja. We have been 4. The others retired and went away, but I believe the DVC Academic Affairs will fill up those positions. Mine is welcome remarks on this important occasion. The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Kakumba, with whom I work, with whom I fall under, because he's the one who appointed me, he's my boss. All members of top management, Professor Bbaale, our chief celebrant today, all my colleagues in the academia, and all those who are attending virtually with us, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Professorial Inaugural Lecture Organizing Committee and on my own behalf, allow me to welcome you to this important academic event in the professional growth of Professor Bbaale as Makerere University is preparing to celebrate 100 years of existence. Professor Bbaale is the first, and I want to emphasize that, is the first young professor to give his inaugural lecture only 5 months after promotion. And allow me to congratulate you on this record. Please encourage your colleagues that it is possible. Professorial inaugural lectures form an important aspect of the university because they would reflect the caliber of the appointed, promoted professors based on the research done and the ability to share the research results, stroke technologies, stroke knowledge with the university community and the public. Today's lecture, for example, Rethinking Growth in Africa, is timely following this COVID-19 pandemic. Such information would be used by various institutions, including government, to inform policies. I would therefore encourage every professor in the university to give an inaugural lecture. I delivered mine in 2004, but we did not have a committee to guide us, and it was hard because you didn't know what to put in, what to leave out, how to put your title that would capture everybody. But we managed. I was inspired by the few inaugural lectures I attended that led me to give mine. If you are about to retire, you may give what we call a valedictory lecture or farewell lecture. At least leave some knowledge behind in your institution. I believe someone today from this audience and that attending virtually will be inspired to give his or hers. The good news is that we are leaving 2 professors who have already expressed their interest and they have put in their titles to give the lectures, and this will be handled by the next committee. So the VCAA in 2007 saw the need to have a committee of some professors who had delivered inaugural lectures before to help the university streamline the inaugural lectures in the university. And I was appointed the chairperson. The committee developed guidelines for the preparation of lectures and also guided the professors. Because this committee is multidisciplinary. You have all the academia there. And these efforts greatly improved the quality of the lectures. If you compare the lectures that have been delivered DVCA today and those that were delivered before the committee, you will see a big difference in quality. Also, the committee would receive the drafts of the lecture, send it to an external reviewer for quality assurance, because you don't want to allow a professor present a lecture that is at the end doubted by people, especially those in his or her specialty. So that really helps. We are happy. We have managed to have 6 inaugural lectures, including today's, since our committee. And we are also seeing an increasing interest by professors participate. Mr. DVCAA, we have planted a seed, and I'm very sure that you will continue to nurture it to full growth. There are numbers of professors who have delivered since 2007. Vis-a-vis the estimated 98 professors in Makerere University is partly attributed to lack of adequate incentives and lack of policy. Our committee, sir, has developed a draft policy to institutionalize professorial inaugural lectures by Senate at your request. So the draft, you'll be receiving it soon. Mr. DVCA, this marks my last obligation with the university as chair, because I have retired. And actually you extended my mandate. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. You extended my mandate to chair. I've retired at 70 years, I have served, so no problem. I thank members of the committee. I've already mentioned Professor Bachibinga, Mayanja Buinza, and those who left, and all members of the Secretariat and the DVCA office, and others we've worked with under AR, under PRO. Doreen has been key during the process, especially under COVID. I wish to thank Professor Bbaale, who has made my end of term visible through this inaugural lecture. I would have gone quietly. And I want to thank the DVCA. When I wanted to hand over, he said, no, continue until you deliver. And the DVCA, I have delivered. This is the output. Soon we are going to see the outcome there. Of course, I can't fail to thank the VC who has made my retirement transition smooth, and all the support I have received from him since we came to know each other. I have served Makerere University for 36 years with dedication, and I'm equally happy that the university has contributed significantly to my professional growth and welfare. And I'm living here a very happy professor. But I am at your service. I am available to continue serving this university in any other form. Thank you. We build for the future.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you very much, Professor Elizabeth. You've built for the future. And you really thanked Professor Edward Bbaale for making your term and towards the end visible. And we are also thanking Professor Edward Bbaale in the same spirit for making us able as an academic institution to end the year in a befitting style. I'm happy to note that the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, is following us online. Kindly let him know that there is a very big audience in this room. Let's put our hands together. Yes, Vice Chancellor, that is our welcome to you. And thank you for honoring this professorial inaugural lecture. I said at some point I'll be coming up with some other people, but if I miss you, it's the masks. Let us welcome Dr. Muyinda Birevu from the College of Education and External Studies, Professor Robert Wamala, Deputy Director, Research and Graduate Training, Professor Muhammad Intale from the College of Natural Sciences. I was ably informed that Professor Elia Hisali will introduce the academic staff from the College of Business and Management Sciences at a particular time, because he can ably recognize them even when they are wearing gowns and masks. We also have Professor Mango from the College of Natural Sciences. Yes. College of Business and Management Sciences will ably be introduced by the principal of the college. Allow me to request in 1 minute, Dr. Umaru Kakumba, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, to come and ably welcome the Vice Chancellor to address us.
Thanks very much, Rita, and a very good afternoon to you, all the participants, to this professorial inaugural lecture that is going to be delivered by Professor Edward Bbaale. I've been requested to come and invite the Vice Chancellor. I have been with the Vice Chancellor at a retreat of the University Council. So the University Council and all of the chairpersons of the committees of council are reviewing the performance for the year. So we are all out of here. We agreed that I come to attend to this physically, but the VC and the entire team are following us online. So VC, I hope the team here has connected and the VC should be able to excuse himself for a few minutes, probably to come and talk to us and provide the audience with some remarks to this important event. VC, can you hear? Can you join us, please?
Yes, I joined you from the very beginning.
Thank you so much. So it is my great pleasure and privilege to invite you at this juncture, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, to address the gathering. The gathering is quite big. It's only that the program director may not notice very, very important people. I have seen colleagues from the Ministry of Finance, from the various important institutions of government, the National Planning Authority, the Economic Policy Research Center, the Central Bank. There are quite many that I can look at here, but the audience is full and it's all gathered around to listen to this important occasion. So Mr. VC, the time is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kakumba. So our chief guest, Professor Edward Bbaale, and your family, distinguished government officials present, the members of council and management, the chairperson and members of the Professorial Inaugural Lectures Organizing Committee, the Principal College of Business and Management Sciences, college principals, deputy principals, deans, directors, and department chairs, the staff, College of Business and Management Sciences, all members of staff and students, distinguished guests, the media fraternity, ladies and gentlemen. A good afternoon to you all. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you to this occasion of a professorial inaugural lecture by our distinguished member of staff, Edward Bbaale. I am happy to note the very high attendance of Professor Bbaale's colleagues in the College of Business and Management Sciences. It is such team spirit that propel Makerere University to greater heights. The professorial inaugural lecture is a hallmark event in academia meant to bring together in a single talk the scholarly journal of an appointed professor. We therefore expect to get a snapshot of Professor Bbaale's contributions to society through his academic exploits in the field of economics. I am glad to note that the inaugural lecture topic on rethinking growth in Africa, farms and the business environment quality is in line with the current global economic challenges arising due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Several business firms, both local and international, have had unprecedented decline. In Uganda, the informal sector has been greatly affected and livelihoods compromised. Institutionally, as we mark 100 years of existence, and I must say of excellent service to humanity, it is prudent to take the stock of our research impact in Uganda and Africa at large. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, has in the past stated that he wants Makerere to research on Africa's problems. I am proud to highlight that Makerere contributes over 70% of the research in Uganda. However, our contribution on continental level is only about 3%. But remember that 3% of all research on the whole continent, 3% goes to Makerere, which is quite a big figure, but I think we can do much more. We need to engage in more collaborative partnerships with industry, the community, and international institutions. At this juncture, allow me to state the theme of our centennial celebrations, which is leveraging 100 years of excellence in building and transformed society. I call on all of us to be the beacons of our institution. Together, we can fulfill the vision to be a thought leader of knowledge generation for society transformation and development. Professors are expected to take the lead in this process as an inspiration to the nascent scholars. I want to thank you, Professor Bbaale, for being a good example, and the chair of the committee has already said one of the youngest professors to actually give their inaugural lecture. It is no mean feat, and it is a bold move. I do wish you all the best, and I do hope that we are all going to enjoy your lecture as you.
Now, in a befitting academic style, it is the Principal College of Business and Management Sciences who will tell us who Professor Edward Bbaale is in that academic style. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Rita. And I also join everyone who has spoken before to very warmly welcome you to this very big event. You are most welcome. I've also been, before I go into the introduction of Professor Bbaale, I've been requested to introduce my colleagues, members of staff from the College of Business and Management Sciences. In the interest of time, I would request that we all stand up for a moment. College of Business and Management Sciences staff. Thank you. We have my colleague, the Deputy Principal, Professor Yahweh. I have Professor Kleng, Dean, School of Business. Professor Bbaale is Dean, School of Economics. And I have Dr. James Wakadala, Dean of the School of Statistics and Planning. You are all most welcome. We also have our key stakeholders. Some of them have already been introduced. I saw colleagues from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, led by Dr. Albert Msisi. I saw him somewhere. I hope he's still here. Please, and your team. We have our graduate students, masters and PhD. Can you please rise for one moment? The graduate students at the college. National Planning Authority, I saw colleagues from NPA. Yes, you are most welcome. And the Hajat from the Economic Policy Research Center, our close partners and so you are all most welcome. And of course, I also recognize the family of Professor Bbaale, and it is the family that I have associated with for a very long time. I think since the inception of the family, the nuclear family. So you are most welcome to today's event. So I will now turn to introduce to all of us Professor Edward Bbaale. Edward Bbaale is a professor of economics and holds a PhD in economics a Master of Arts degree in Economic Policy and Planning, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics, among other qualifications. He is currently the Dean, School of Economics at Makerere University, and the Director of the Environment for Development Center, which is part of a global network of environmental economics research centers supported by the Swedish International Agency for International Development. With support from SIDA, Edward is the lead person at Makerere University for the Inclusive Green Economy Capacity Development Program for senior civil servants and policy makers. With support from the World Bank, Edward is the principal investigator of a project intended to establish a center of excellence for public investment management at Makerere University. Prior to becoming Dean, Edward served as a graduate programs coordinator in the School of Economics for the period between 2012 and 2013. He has a very rich hands-on experience in economics research with a bias in development microeconomics for enterprises and households. He was in the year 2017 awarded a postdoctoral scholarship by the Austrian Agency for International Cooperation in Education and Research to undertake research at the Vienna Institute of International Economic Studies in Vienna, Austria. He was in 2013 nominated as a visiting fellow for the Journal of African Economies at the Department of Economics at Oxford University in the UK. He was in 2010 nominated for the visiting research fellow position at the Center for Global Development in Washington, DC. He was in 2019 appointed a chairperson of the Governing Council of Kampala Polytechnic based in Mengo. In 2021, he was appointed as a member of the University Council of Mutesa I Royal University. In 2021 still, he was appointed as a member of the National Task Force on Enhancement of Labor Productivity, which is housed under the Ministry of Gender, Labor, and Social Development. He has served as an external examiner at Chambogo University, the University of Malawi, the University of Zambia, University of Namibia, the National University of Lesotho, and the Wits University in South Africa. He was also an external examiner for the University of Zimbabwe between 2015 and 2020. He's a member of the expanded board of the National Planning Authority and the capacity in which he has served since 2015. He's a member of Senate of Makerere University and sits on the admissions and the mature age committees of Senate. He was also a chairperson of a special task force that worked on and established the student work and employment scheme policy at Makerere University. He's a member of the African Economic Research Consortium Advisory Board. The ARC is based in Nairobi, Kenya. He is the vice chairperson of the Makerere University Dean's Forum and also a member of the scientific committee of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa Young Economists Network. Edward has authored over 40 papers and published in peer-reviewed journals. 2 of his papers were voted as highly commended award winners at the Literati Network Awards for Excellence in 2012 and in 2019. At the national level, he has implemented a number of policy relevant research projects with government ministries and agencies as well as the private sector. Welcome, Professor Edward Bbaale.
Thank you very much. I'm greatly honored to be here this afternoon. And I will go through the protocol, first of all, in a very, very short speech before I deliver the lecture. The Vice Chancellor, Makerere University, members of Makerere University Council and the Senate present physically and virtually, the first Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, the second Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration, Commissioners of Government, members of Makerere University Central Management present, college principals, deputy principals, deans, directors, and chairs, the Professorial Inaugural Lecture Organizing Committee, professors, distinguished academics, and administrators, members of my family and friends, members from the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I glorify God Almighty for his unmerited grace and favor that has brought me this far and for giving me the opportunity to stand before you, the most distinguished audience, as I deliver this Professorial Inaugural Lecture. The Makerere University Professorial Inaugural Lecture Series provide an opportunity for a professor to share his or her knowledge and contributions with others in the area of specialization for purposes of extending the frontiers of knowledge and to showcase the application of his work in improving the quality of life. Therefore, I am greatly honored and favored by God to stand before you as I share my academic journey and my contributions towards expanding the frontiers of knowledge in the field of economics, and more specifically in demonstrating the role of firms in fueling the overall economic growth. This lecture is titled Rethinking Growth in Africa, Farms and Business Environment Quality. My interest in this area dates back early 2000s, and there was a positive influence from my PhD supervisor, Professor Michael Landsman, who seemed to understand Uganda's data and situation more than I did during the time. He therefore advised me that I would add more value to the body of knowledge if I undertook an enterprise level analysis of farm level productivity and exporting in the Uganda's manufacturing sector. And this paper was later published in the African Journal of Economic and Management Studies. And in 2012, it was voted as a highly recommended award winner in that network. This paper was premised on the fact that in the 1990s and following the economic recovery program, the government of Uganda pursued the prudent macroeconomic policy characterized by single-digit inflation rate, liberalized exchange rate, and other supportive policies, major reforms in the public sector, and also establishment of different bodies of government, including Uganda Investment Authority. And such interventions resulted into higher rate of GDP growth that actually reached an average of about 7%, and also witnessed huge inflows of foreign direct investment. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it will be of interest to you to note that in spite of the prudent macroeconomic policy, industrialization failed to take root in Uganda, just like in similar African countries. Actually, right now, the share of industry to GDP is below the target set out in the National Development Plan 3. And this means that industrialization requires more than just a good macroeconomic policy environment. And so starting around the 1990s, many researchers believed that understanding the farm level productivity performance and the microeconomic environment in which businesses operate could thus be very instrumental in promoting industrialization, especially the manufacturing sector. A good understanding of the drivers of productivity and competitiveness of the manufacturing sector is very crucial in ensuring growth in the private sector, which is essential for fueling overall economic growth of a country. Against this background of a very prudent macroeconomic policy environment and the lagging behind of the industrial sector, especially manufacturing, a number of studies were launched. The earliest was on the US economy, and this was followed by a huge body of knowledge undertaking a similar analysis at enterprise level in both developed and developing countries. It is in this line of studies that my first paper emerged. This paper looked at farm level productivity and exporting in the Uganda's manufacturing sector, and I'll throw some more light later on. This was followed by another work where I intended to understand whether if farms break through and go to international markets, whether the beneficial aspects are different depending on whether it is a developed market or underdeveloped market. And this paper gave me the opportunity to understand issues to do with differences in productivity thresholds that farms need to bear in mind before you break into a European Union market or a market in South Sudan or a market in Kenya. And so this work was also published in the African Journal of Economic Policy. And this type of work that I've been doing over the years has given me an opportunity to explore different academic and professional issues. Just like my principal noted that following the same line of work, in 2010, I was nominated as an IDRC funded postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Global Development in Washington, DC, USA. And in 2013, I went on to do similar work as a visiting fellow for the Journal of African Economics, Department of Economics, University of Oxford in UK. And much more recently, in 2017, I went to the Vienna Institute of International Economic Studies to do research in the same area. And the government of Austria funded my stay in Austria when I was doing this type of fellowship. And this fellowship gave rise to a new paper in the same area, which I'm going to share with you later. And this paper is the corruption and farm level productivity, whether it is a grazing or sanding effect. And this paper is co-authored with Dr. Ibrahim Michael Kumu, and I recognize you for this, my colleague. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, allow me to warmly welcome all the distinguished ladies and gentlemen to this professorial lecture. Before I continue with the full extent of the lecture, allow me to recognize the presence of my dad and mom, Mzee Edward Bbaale, ne mama. There are also aunties, baganda ba mama ne banyina webali. Excuse me for changing the language for his benefit, but also allow me to change again the language and say, kwasinga okwagala. I want to thank you so much. Thank you for the support you received from Mama n'abantu abalala bonna that really helped me here. And then from the spiritual front, I recognize members from my church. Musumba Joel is here leading a team. Thank you very much for coming. And also, allow me to recognize the presence of my wife, Patricia Agnes. Children, they are there. And I have also many brothers and sisters. My dad was very expansive in nature. They're all here. Thank you for coming. And at the same time, as I conclude, I also have in-laws in the house. Mukose Nyonga, thank you for coming. And all the rest that I've not seen, thank you for coming. And Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, allow me to thank the Office of the First Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs, Professor Kakumba. I never knew that such events are so much not only in your office, but also they lie at the center of your heart. Because when you heard of the interest to do this type of thing, at one time, I think I felt that I should do postponed much more because of the different things that I was doing. I went out of the country for a month, and this is the month in which I was supposed to be working on this lecture. And so I felt that maybe it could work later, but I said, no, let us keep going. You have given me great support. I want to thank your office administrators. Thank you to Doreen. And we pray for the late, actually, who delivered almost all the letters from your office to colleagues, inviting them for this lecture. We ask the Lord to actually receive him in peace. And I will not end without thanking the Professorial Inaugural Lectures Organizing Committee, Professor Sabiti. Thank you so much for all you have done, all that people are seeing. With the support from the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, you have done great. Thank you to Public Relations. The MC you see here is the Principal Publications Office of the university. They have been responsible for all this work. I've not been involved in anything. Thank you, Professor Kakumba, for your office being very, apart from maybe asking me to provide my profile and other things, everything has been done without my intervention, and I want to thank you so very much. Now, colleagues, I want to welcome you all to this inaugural lecture, which I'm going to start sharing with you. And I request colleagues that are in the working with the technology, I think that it needs to be a little bit bigger so that colleagues can be able to follow what is going on. It is rethinking growth in Africa and farms and the business environment quality. By way of agenda, I'll look at a reflection of the growth trends in Africa, and then what is required of African economies to revive and sustain growth. And our central point here is the industrial sector. And so I'll go through the theoretical insights because this is an academic environment where theory is very important. And then the role of farms in fostering resilient growth, and look at farm characteristics in relation to some key outcomes at farm level. And then later on, look at the business environment quality and the farm performance. But most importantly, I will emphasize a lot on my contribution to knowledge in this area. And later on, I'll give an agenda for future research. I want to note that Africa has undergone episodes of growth, decline and stagnation. In the 1960s, Africa experienced growth high above that of South Asia. And Africa's GDP growth ranged between 6 to 8%. And was 3.5 times higher than that of South Asia. And the growth was largely attributed to improved performance of the agricultural sector and expansion of the export sector. In Uganda, we note that this growth was a result of import substitution. And this was a strategy to enhance economic diversification and employment creation. Following the mid-1970s and throughout 80s, growth declined to 2%. And this was mainly due to macroeconomic instability, political pressure, leading to civil wars, and external shocks, especially the price fluctuations originating from the oil price shocks. And this resulted into basically low private sector savings and investments, and this led to a decline in growth. In Uganda, we find that actually investments dried up, and this was a result of the expulsion of the Asian entrepreneurs and so exports and GDP per capita continuously went down. And so this is an exposition of growth. I don't know whether you see, when you follow here, we see that the growth was negative since 70s and worsening in some periods, but also GDP per capita declining, and gross domestic investment also on the decline, and same to exports and others. But now, looking at the inflation, it moved from a single digit to a 3-digit number, which is representative of a very volatile macroeconomic environment. And African countries definitely responded through a coordinated set of reforms, the structure adjustment programs intended to raise efficiency in the productive sectors, but also create a business environment that provides incentives for domestic and foreign investors. However, the implementation of these structure adjustment programs was poor in such a way that what we noted is that external debt increased beyond manageable levels. Income per capita levels also declined below those levels that were reported in the 70s. Many countries faced macroeconomic instability, political conflicts, and in some countries, civil wars erupted. However, light at the end of the tunnel, giving an example of Uganda, in 1987, Uganda embarked on the economic recovery program, and the main goal was to stabilize the economy, revamp growth, and minimize deficits in the balance of payments. And this was through major reforms in the public sector, market and price reforms, trade liberalization, as well as exchange rate reforms. And this resulted into a stabilized economy with a positive GDP per capita growth that averaged 7%. And so around that time, Uganda was known to be the fastest growing economy in the East African region. Inflation rates declined annually, deficits gaps narrowed, and the exchange rate was stabilized. Other African countries had similar experiences. So growth in Africa was generally at an average of 5 to 6% per year. And the picture for Uganda after the economic recovery program, GDP growth, becoming positive and rising. And when you take an average, it is around about 6 point something to 7. And sorry, down here, it cannot be seen, but let me report. Down here, it is showing that inflation actually ran from 3-digit number to a single digit. And the last number here, which you can see, is 4.5. I'm sorry, my laptop has been exchanged. And so it was, yes, it is the touch screen as well. Thank you very much. And so we see that we are back to a single digit number for inflation. Okay. But surprisingly, and this is my point of entry in terms of research, this fast GDP growth did not actually give what we would call unexpected view in terms of the sectors of development. And what happened in the 60s, we see agriculture was dominant, and the industry and services sector around 16 and 34% of GDP, respectively. And so a very important point to note is that by the 70s, African countries were ready to industrialize, and so purposively followed industrial-led policies. In Uganda, for example, import substitution industrialization strategy was followed, and state-owned enterprises were established. Value addition to primary commodities and also efforts to revamp and establish new infrastructure, roads, and electricity. However, industrial growth continuously fell behind GDP growth in Africa. And as a result of this, this was a result of the poor domestic policies that were picked during the time. And so the huge debt repayment resulted into import restrictions. Later on, I will say that once you restrict imports for a developing country like Uganda, and here I know that I'm risking because many economists and government build Uganda, buy Uganda, build what? Uganda. So I later on from my empirical work, I look at the importance of imports, especially the imports of capital goods and other inputs that cannot be sourced locally. Without it, then you cannot produce for export. And later on, I will argue that actually importing the machinery and others is a precondition for exporting. And I know that it is a risk. Many academicians might criticize that. And then most of the industrial policies were capital intensive, and the exchange rate policies could not actually attract investment. And this is a picture for the entire Africa. We are not entire Africa, but we have a sample, and this is value addition percentage of GDP. What we see, the services sector contributes more than agriculture and than industry. And so the industrial sector, we see a decline, 17% in 81, and then 12% in 2020. What has happened? It means that the service sector has taken some of the contributions to GDP that was for industry. And in the same way, you see the service sector has grown. The share of the services has grown, and it is about 50% when we look at the picture of the entire Africa. And for Uganda, it is a different picture. So this means, and I want to risk again to say that African economies are prematurely deindustrializing, because the position and the share of industry has been taken over by another sector. What can I call that? This is an academic environment. We can debate that, but that's what I believe. Sorry for that. This is where we have been, and very sensitive machine, sorry. And we are saying that the service sector has overtaken the share of GDP compared to others. And we see, and we are very much concerned with the decline in the industrial sector, raising serious concerns. And you see that when the industrial sector is declining, what is happening? It is undermines efforts for realization of job creation and in the high productive sectors. Industrial sector, especially manufacturing, is known to be of a high level, a high productive sector. And so doing that, then we are foregoing that. And then it also undermines efforts to attain high aggregate income growth, and many of the aspirations may be in balance. For example, reaching, some aspirations set out in the government documents. And then the agriculture sector is still accommodating the majority, because here we are looking at employment share, and what we note, agriculture is still employing. There is a decline, and so it means that there is a shift of labor from agriculture to other sectors. But where is this labor going? This labor is shifting to the services sector. And I would say this is good, but not very good, because we are missing out. Why, if it went to industry, then that's where we would be very sure of a very high probability of job creation in the high productive sector, but also where would be assured of high income growth. And then I've mentioned this, that employment is shifting from agriculture to services, which is not good. And also the industry, especially manufacturing sector, is one that is known to have a potential to create more jobs. But now, as you can see from the graph, industry's total share of employment has stalled around 10%. And this is, I would say this, that whereas there has been sectoral shifts in the GDP composition, because GDP composition has moved, as you saw from the previous diagram, from agriculture to services, but there has not been sectoral shifts in employment generation. Much of our workers are in agriculture, and later on I'm going to show an empirical work that we have done to understand the implications of GDP shifting to other sectors, but employment remaining in sectors that actually contribute less to growth. And here I'm trying to emphasize the fact that the industrial sector is having the highest value added per worker. This is a sector which we would prioritize. It is a high productive sector. And this diagram is testifying to that effect. And it also has large economies of scale and the potential for technological progress. Technology is, I would say that firms, business firms, the fountain of technological progress. If you want to grow technologically, it must be in firms. But if we are losing out on this, then we are foregoing technological progress and other things. Spillover effects are also stronger in industry, but also productivity growth is higher in the industrial sector than any other sector. But looking at Uganda domestically, we see that GDP, still the same. There has been a sectoral shifts in GDP composition from agriculture. You see the decline, and then services taking over, and but industry is still trailing down here despite an improvement. And what is happening? What is happening is that despite this improvement, we are seeing that the target in the NDP3 is 20% of GDP, but in Uganda, industry is still contributing smaller than what the target of government is. And so the manufacturing sector remains very small and largely engaged in the production of low value added goods. And this implies that a mix of macroeconomic policies, reforms pursued, failed to generate the desired growth in the industrial sector. And so even in terms of contribution to merchandise exports, contribution to GDP, we see that it is from 2% and then 3%, but in 2020, actually 13%. And so it is still below the target stated in the NDP3 of 18%. And so it means that in terms of industry, contribution to employment, contribution to GDP, contribution to exports, we are still lagging behind. But now I ask myself a question, and this is where empirics came in, is because now we have seen the sectoral composition of GDP, we have seen the sectoral composition of employment, and so the question is Uganda's growth profile jobless? This is very important to government. And so what we did, I did the work, an empirical work answering this question, having realized what has happened, and therefore to lend an empirical regularity to understanding the fact that Uganda's GDP, Uganda's growth profile might be jobless. And we used the job generation and growth decomposition tool of the World Bank, and we have done this one twice. And in 2006 to 2011, using the same tool, we accepted the jobless growth hypothesis for the case of Uganda. And also, we repeated this same work, and we were consulting with National Planning Authority, with my colleagues, doing a consultancy, and we repeated that type of question empirically for 2010 and 2018. And the conclusions were that actually Uganda's growth profile is jobless. And it can be seen even before you test it empirically. Why? Because, I mean, you can very well see the majority of workers are concentrated in the agricultural sector. Look at this diagram, 72% are in agriculture sector, but agriculture contributing 25.5. See, and so industry, look at the contribution of industry vis-a-vis employment in this year, but also 2016-17, whereas agriculture's contribution to GDP has declined, has declined further, to 24.6, its employment contribution is still 65%. And yet, the services sector is the one that is driving growth, both in both these years. Services sector driving growth, but its employment potential is so low. And so, even without this diagram, from the empirical work that we did, it is clear that the services sector has a low employment intensity of growth than agriculture and industry. And so economic growth driven by the services sector in Uganda has not resulted in a commensurate increase in employment. A 1% increase in GDP leads to a less than 1% increase in employment growth. This is a serious issue. And so the question is, do the poor benefit from growth therefore? No, because the poor can only benefit from growth if they are involved in the efforts driving growth through employment. So you are in the sector that has been left behind by GDP contribution, and so it means that productivity is so low in that sector, and it also means that the amount of money you can earn in that sector is equally very small. And another interesting finding of this empirical work was that the movement of labor out of agriculture raises aggregate productivity, but the movement of labor out of industry undermines it. And what does it mean? This means that there should be efforts to facilitate the movement of labor from agriculture to other sectors, but at the same time, efforts to maintain labor in the industrial sector through reskilling or identifying the skilling gaps that the industry might need to flourish. Last week, we were here in the oil and gas symposium, and what triggered my mind was the mention by somebody who came from maybe Total, that they are very much interested in skilling the people that are going to work in the oil and gas. They were of the view that the oil and gas is a higher risk, a very risky sort of sector. That if you are a welder, for example, and that you have not been certified, your qualifications are wanting, then you're going to cause a very big accident that might actually cost this country a lot of assets, but also human life. And so the issue of who are those that must work in industry is a very big question. And so they're trying to address the qualification framework. And the agriculture also has experienced a decline in productivity. It is an empirical question with the numbers. And so what must be done? Then there must be efforts to uplift this productivity through skilling and other modern agricultural practices. And then also there is another empirical question that we tried to answer following the changes in the composition of GDP of the country. And so we undertook a study to understand export composition and GDP growth. And so we're trying to say, in a growth model, whereas many studies have tested the fact that total exports actually are associated with fast growth, but we have the view that different export components contribute differently to growth. And so we went on to disaggregate the export value by the different components and trying to understand what about manufacturing, what about agriculture, what about the subcomponents within manufacturing. But of course, we are limited by the data limitations for a developing country. So the desire was, let us have a very low level of disaggregation so that we can have high-tech manufactured goods versus low-tech manufactured goods, and then versus the general value of manufacturing. But this one couldn't be done. However, for a group of countries in Africa, we attest to the fact that manufactured exports, especially those high value goods, drive growth more than other components. And so it means that we are pointing towards industrialization. This is where we should go. And this is an empirical question. The paper is published in the Journal of Sustainable Development. And at the same time, we're also tickled to look at the different import components. The importation of capital goods, the importation of inputs is a precondition to production, is a precondition to exporting. And at the same time, actually, we're of the view that the imported capital goods in the country is equivalent to improvement in technology, because there is an inflow of knowledge and technology that is embodied in the imported goods. Up here in this building, we have a state-of-the-art video conferencing facility. But when they had just installed it there, none of us could operate it. And that this required some training of key personnel to understand the technology involved. It means that now the technology associated with that is with us in Uganda here, just like many other imported commodities. And so we find also evidence that the importation of capital goods and some inputs drive growth. It is not importing per se that matter. It is not exporting per se that matter, but different components actually drive growth differently. And so we are still on course to expose the fact that actually the prudent macroeconomic policy did not, whereas it salvaged GDP growth, it was not sufficient enough to spark growth in the industrial sector. These were, the results of, good macroeconomic policy environment from the economic recovery program, which I've already mentioned. But what we have seen is that industry remained lagging behind. And so the question comes, what is required therefore for African countries, Uganda inclusive, to sustain growth, particularly in the industry? And so this is a point, a turning point where I'm saying that there is need to refocus on the macroeconomic policy environment where business firms operate, and that so since 70s, there has been a growing body of literature to do this. But as I said, my first contribution in this line of research was in the early 2000s. And the point was that despite the prudent macroeconomic policy, we are not seeing a commensurate increase in the share of industry to GDP. And so let us understand the microeconomics of industry so that we can be able to prescribe policies that can help to develop. And it is against that background that my work started then. And so the paper, Role of Exporting on Farm Level Productivity in Uganda's manufacturing sector, published, and it was an award-winning paper in the network where it was published. And over there is the award that was given to me in 2012. It was a highly recommended award winner when it was published. And the background was that around that time, this was the type of work that many people were expecting to have on the table. And then I want to go ahead and look at theoretical insights, but I'm not going to delay a lot here. The whole point is the turning away, not turning away actually, but complementing macroeconomic policy with the microeconomic environment where business firms operate and solve a number of frictions that occur at a microeconomic level, so that together with prudent macroeconomic policy, we can spur economic growth. And so the number of theoretical insights, there is a theory on farm-led technological progress. I said that, farms are a fountain of technological progress. I will not dwell on that fact, but a number of authors support that. And also the fact that farms, I'll use the same word, that farms, again, are a fountain of job creation. And also, especially in the high productive sector, which must be actually manufacturing. It is a fountain of job employment creation, decent employment. And at the same time, another theory of the fact that farms are a fountain of exporting. If we look at the total exports of the country, then it is an aggregation. And later on, I'm going to look at the different theories which we tested in this work about export performance. And also, the other theoretical is about corruption and the quality of governance. Is just like the wheels of a vehicle or something. Some people argue that corruption acts as a greasing agent to quicken it. And others saying no, others it is a sanding effect. And so once there is corruption, then there are a lot of frictions in the system, and as a result, undermining farm level productivity, etc., because of increased costs and other things. But also, so from that theory, then we see farms are very important for technological progress. Farms are very important for aggregate productivity growth. And also, farms are very important for exporting. Farms are very important for employment growth. And now this brings me to a question. Therefore, are farm characteristics favorable for this resilient growth? And so we are going to look at some of them and see the journey that many African countries must work to have a vibrant industrial sector. If there is a failure of farm performance, then the industrial sector is also failing. And so, just like the Vice Chancellor noted, there is a high prevalence of a large informal sector, and it is acting as a source of employment. And these farms are typically very small, less efficient, characterized by low productivity and low wages. And they produce non-exportable goods and services. And so for this work, we looked at a sample of 22 African countries. And so the idea was to understand a few of these characteristics. And what we see from the diagram is that many African countries are experiencing the fact that most of the farms are small, 58%, and actually higher for Uganda. And the medium and large are very few. And then also starters, those that have just entered the market to do business, starters, then the young farms, and then the old. And so for Africa, what we see, 66% therefore over 10 years, but exporting, the number is very small, 23% are exporters. We are losing a lot on what happens in the global trading arena, because we are represented by very few farms, and then domestic versus foreign owned, and then manufacturing versus services. But now coming to small farms, I don't want to dispute the fact that many of us start small and grow, but a very small plane in the skies is very scary. The turbulence hitting it, and the turbulence hitting a 777 Boeing is different. And actually the probability that the one that is starting very small will not survive is very high. And this is what is exactly happening in African countries, Uganda inclusive. So being small, yes, start small, but will you be able to survive the turbulence? Will you be able to swim through the waters and come up with a big enterprise? And at the same time, if you are small, then also aggregate industrial productivity is also small. And also you will employ 1 to 2 people. So job generation is also compromised. And what about if there are very few farms that are actually exporting? What about if there are very many domestically owned? This one, I think my boss, the principal, is a Build by Uganda, Build Uganda. And so this one we might discuss, but the fact that we have very few foreign-owned farms is we are missing out on domestic capital accumulation remains too low to cover the gap as far as investment is concerned. And then limited spillover of knowledge and technology. I want to say that when we have a foreign farm, just like the example I gave, this leads to the spillover of technology and knowledge. And so we are losing on that. And then limited investments leading to limited employment creation, foreign exchange earnings and others. And then also limited competition suggests that we have low efficiency, low productivity at farm level. And so again, it implies that we are marginalized in the global trading arena. We are marginalized. Our share of the market is so small that it is negligible. And so foreign investment covers 1, technological gaps, covers 2, knowledge gaps, technological gaps. And also our penetration into international markets also has the same effect, because once you are there, then you do what we call learning by exporting. You are challenged by your competitors, But at the same time, customers in the global trading arena prescribe things which naturally must push you to a higher level of efficiency. And so you learn by exporting. And so if this is the picture, then we are missing on all of those aspects. What about services being in the lead? 58%, and manufacturing is 42. I took a risk of mentioning deindustrialization because the share that was originally for industry, some bits 1980s, it has been taken over by services sector. And so economists in the house can have another view, but that's what it is from my perspective. And because we are in the services driving growth, what is happening? We have limited decent jobs. Innovation and technology diffusion is also limited, and then limited spillover effects to other economic sectors. Once the industry is in the lead, then there is this spillover to other sectors. And then limited opportunities for exports and limited productivity growth potential. I want to come back to the fact that when you are just starting, a starting farm, you start, a starter is that farm that is 0 to 4 years. And we see that 74, almost 75% of starters are very small. They are small farms. And you know, the younger ones, we have 5 to 10 years, and then the old ones, you know, it means that farm level entering to the market, many farms enter when they are small. And I gave an example of turbulence over either the Sahara Desert or turbulence over the ocean. Many of these farms may not be able to survive through the journey. And starting small, it means that the probability of staying small is very high. And if not staying small, then the probability of exiting, killing the job, breaking down because of COVID-19 and other things is also very high. And in terms of productivity, allow me to show this number quickly, that it varies by farm size, where large farms that maybe they have gone over the strenuous season of you know, a lot of sunk costs to be paid, a lot of turbulences, they are more productive than medium and small. But at the same time, an emphasis here, given my area of research, is that large manufacturing firms are more productive than large services firms. Where should we go? Large manufacturing firms are far more productive than large service firms. And also, in terms of farm age, the old farms are more productive. And when we go to theory, this might be conflicting with this theory, because when you have just come in, you're a starter, it implies that the scope for learning is wider, okay? And so you are bound to be more productive. But now what we see, old farms are more productive, but at the same time, the old manufacturing firms are more productive than the old services firms, emphasizing the important role of industry. And then what about domestic versus foreign owned? We see that foreign firms are more productive, but also foreign owned firms that are in manufacturing are more productive than foreign owned firms that are in service sector. And so it means that we should go industry. And here, allow me to expand that a little bit. Oh, somebody can see, sorry. It is going to come, yes. I want to show the fact that for even cross-country, in terms of productivity, this scatter diagram is showing that many countries are concentrated around zero, very few above average. Uganda, yes, is above average. Tanzania, yes. But now the concentration, it means that very low efficiency levels in Africa, Uganda inclusive. And so penetrating into international markets becomes very difficult here. And I'm reaching something that is, in terms of what I've looked at in this lecture, is the potential of farms to create jobs and the potential of farms to destroy jobs. So the question here, what are those groups of farms that are job creators? This is important for government. This is important to all of us. What about those groups of farms that are also job destroyers? Those that create jobs today, and before 1 year, they kill the jobs. And so here we use the two terms where we are saying that we computed the gross job creation rate and compared it with the gross job destruction rate. And the results show that actually the services sector is leading in job creation. But also, if job is created at 5% and in the same sector, gross job destruction rate is at 3%, it means that jobs are created at a rate more than half the rate at which they were created. And this is a serious matter, meaning that the demise of jobs is very high. And then when we continue, what we note that so there is unstable employment in services, but also the gross job creation rate in domestic farms, is 6, but the destruction is more than half the rate at which they were created. And then amongst the non-exporting farms, the rate of creation is 7%, but now the rate of destruction is 3.5, half the rate at which it was created. And so a serious matter of job destruction. Creation is done, but also destruction is at a very high toll as far as Africa and Uganda are concerned. It is actually only the old farms that have gone through the turbulence and maybe they are in a sort of a cruising level, and that the destruction is only 2% when the gross job creation rate is 7%. This is a serious matter where we are looking at an economy that must create employment. It is the only way people can benefit from growth. If you are not in employment or in the efforts driving growth, you have been left behind, and therefore you are bound to be in abject poverty and etc. I want to look at a scenario. When I expand it, it disturbs me a lot, but let me show that this diagram is across country showing the job creation rate in blue and the destruction in red. What happens in Uganda? The job creation is slightly above the destruction. And when you don't look at it closely, you might find that the two are balancing. The rate at which it is created is the same rate at which it is destroyed, which would result into a zero-sum game. It would result into no effect at all. Looking at other countries, Ethiopia has a very high job creation rate compared to the destruction. I would say even Tanzania is doing better than Uganda and other countries. Okay. And in terms of exporting, I want to note that we export only less than 20% of our output. And I've already elaborated on the importance of exporting. Once you export, you are going into a source of technological progress. You are sourcing spillover of knowledge. You are sourcing competition and other things. And so exporting less than 20% is really making us lose out on a number of aspects that I've elaborated theoretically. And so here we are looking at farm size, age, and ownership, where again, it is the foreign-owned farms that export higher than the domestic. Yet the large, and when you do cross tabulations, you'll find that the large farms are more likely also to be foreign owned. And so this 19% that is exported can be attributed to the foreign owned farm. And so we need more of that. But now the question is, what is stopping us from breaking into export markets? Are there sunken costs of exporting? The answer is yes. There is a whole bit of product modification. You have to pay for that. You have to pay for information gathering. You have to pay for establishing a distribution network. You have to go through a different legal and regulatory environment in a foreign country. All of those are very serious costs to be paid. You cannot be performing around the average and you think that you can pay all those and work through. And at the same time, the question is, small and younger farms that we have cannot survive in the export market. This one we have seen. But now this creates a lot of pressure on the current accounts of the country because we're importing more and exporting less. And allow me also to show this scatter diagram where also many African countries, including Uganda, are concentrated around zero in terms of export, the share that is exported. Uganda is over there, Tanzania is over there, Kenya is on the line, but now there are some African countries that are above average in terms of doing this, but the majority in sub-Saharan Africa are below average in terms of this exporting performance. And all that I've talked about before and the elaboration I've made refer to small farms, and then the fact that we have more domestic farms, and the fact that we have limited exporting growth versus import growth, and the resulting pressure on the national current accounts. This one I've already talked about there. And so this leads to a question. What therefore constrains the potential of farms in achieving fast growth? So if Africa is to, and Uganda must industrialize, must remove some frictions, so the business environment quality must be improved. And here we argue and say that farms rely a lot on the business environment to expand their production activities. And so we see that African countries, Uganda inclusive, has many challenges. The World Bank doing business rankings indicate that we are still much more behind in terms of the ranking. And so the poor investment environment imposes higher costs, risks, and uncertainty that create disincentives for farms to further invest. And so there is a burden of indirect costs. This weak environment, this business environment leads to, limited job creation, survival of farms as well, and many things. And so I want to look at a scenario of one of the key frictions, power outages, where the demand for electricity is exceeding the supply. And the number that I'm showing here, that for example, Uganda, an average of 16% of output is lost due to power outages. And this is the line. Uganda's line is over here, showing that in view of limited power supply, then some output is lost. And in our models, empirical models, we have run models where we have tested this, not descriptively the way I show it here, but with the models that are tested for their reliability and other measures. And so power outages contributes negatively to farms. And then the other one is transportation. Some people actually don't pay attention to transportation. Thanks to the World Bank Enterprise Survey that actually collects data and it brings together all these business environment measures. Look at a scenario where in a very dark corner, a truck carrying Coca-Cola products, fails to negotiate and falls down. What happens? The residents in the area enjoy the soda. It is really very interesting for people in the area, but the entrepreneurs lost a lot. And if it is because of the poor road network, a very bad corner, or it is a result of potholes, and the empirics tell us that up to 5% of output is lost because of a poor transport network. The same applies to the tax structure. Here we are looking at the tax rate as well as the administration costs. And in Uganda, 5% of farms report that tax administration is the obstacle. And when you look at here, the blue is showing us tax rate being a problem. But many African countries, actually, Uganda inclusive, are saying it is tax administration costs, that the costs of compliance are very high, and that the tax administration structures remain burdensome with the high levels of corruption. And so it is rather the tax administration costs rather than the tax rate that is causing a problem. And registering of farms, I would be very quick to say here, 6% of farms report in Uganda that business licensing and permits represents a serious obstacle. And the rule of law, this one we also tested in the empirical model of productivity of farms, and I will later on discuss some of the findings here, but it stifles business activities, and in Uganda up to 6% of farms are of the view that it is a limitation. Now, this issue of corruption in the development economics literature, corruption is a key aspect that we study as economists. It has different facets, and that the impact of corruption to the economy depends on the level of efficiency. In an inefficient public sector, then corruption is the second best alternative, which actually is looked at as a means of circumventing the red tape. And so farms are forced to pay to circumvent the red tape. And so when you are running a productivity model, your a priori expectation may not be negative. And I've actually done some work where actually the variable of corruption is of the view that it is enhancing exporting. Why? Because of the inefficiencies. In others, it is of the view that it is dampening the productivity potential of farms. And so 5% of output in Uganda is lost. And the idea of corruption is such that we have what we call the bribe tax. Bribe tax is the percentage of a farm's sales that are paid informally. And then we have what we call the time tax. Time tax is the percentage of top management time that is spent in the bureaucratic discussions with the government officials. And then we have the bribe incidents where farms are asked to respond or yes or no, they have ever involved themselves in informal payments. And so all of these actually impact on this. And in terms of, thank you, in terms of the number of days taken to clear or to get permit is that for construction permit, 38% in Uganda, no, 38 days, 41 and 17, which is a lot higher. You know, even when you compare to the African position over there, still it is somewhat high. And so, moving very fast, but we also note that there is, you know, financial constraints with the majority of firms using internally generated funds for reinvestment. Very few going to the banks, and quite a substantial number getting money from informal sources. And then the question is, in terms of these business environment factors, how are they changing by the size of firms? We note that for small firms still mention electricity, still mention corruption as very important. And then also medium firms still mention electricity, still mention corruption, still mention political instability. Even large firms mention the same. And in terms of manufacturing versus services, the picture is not very different. They still say electricity outages are very important, corruption and etc. Same applies to the service firms. And so the COVID-19 pandemic, it has implication on the demand and supply side, supply of labor falling, and also the demand for the firm's products, leading to a number of shocks. I will skip that in the interest of time for the Vice Chancellor to move to other engagements. And I want to spend the last 10 minutes, Vice Chancellor, sir, to talk about my contribution. And after that, then I think it will be done. I will say that in the last decade, much of my work has been centered on farms in African economies. The first part of the work examines the dynamics and the economic role of farms in bridging productivity, exporting, and employment gaps. And the second part of the work puts into perspective the quality of the business environment, infrastructure quality, regulatory quality, and access to credit that are necessary if business firms must flourish. And the first part of what I did is exporting and farm level productivity. Here I tested two hypotheses. There's what they call self-selection hypothesis. All of us are farms in Uganda, but some of us self-select and we go to the international markets, and others stay serving the domestic markets. What are those circumstances that actually enhance others to export, but limit others to do so? And the study recognizes the presence of sunk costs, which I've already mentioned about, establishing the distribution network, modifying the product, advertising and other things that must be paid by these firms. And so a farm that is more productive, a farm that is more efficient is much more likely to break into. And this hypothesis, holds that way. And then we also tested the learning by exporting, that while we are there, we are exposed to advanced knowledge, to advanced technologies, etc. And so because of the limited technological aspects, but also limited experience in exporting, firms that do export are more likely to become much more productive. And so the learning by exporting, which we did here as well as self-selection, are not mutually exclusive. Once a firm penetrates into an export market, in principle, is much more likely to enhance its productivity through learning from customers. In the European Union, for example, Uganda was exporting fish, but I will not forget the fact that European Union market, this prescribes standards, even up to the landing site where the fish is being received. This is not to mention the industry where the fish is being processed. So it means that through all these things, They are costly, but they sharpen the farms to. And then the other thing that I wanted to understand is learning by exporting market specific. Is self-selection market specific? Do farms learn the same when they export to South Sudan compared to one that is exporting to the European Union? Our findings are of the view that exporters to the European Union and other advanced markets have a wider scope for learning than farms that are exporting to South Sudan, for example. These are just examples. And then the other area that I worked on in co-authorship with the Ibrahim Okumu and the Medina from EPRC, innovation and employment growth. We estimate the association between product and process innovation. And we also want to understand the interaction of the business environment. And what we see is that employment is positively associated with process and product innovation, but a weak business environment, poor governance, corruption, and others undermines the ability of innovation to induce employment. And we have been talking about the role of farms as knowledge generators. We are saying internal innovations, foreign technology, and productivity. We try to understand there are some farm level innovations, skilling and R&D. These are internal research and development. And then there are those external knowledge factors, exporting, importing of inputs, and the foreign direct investment. These are external knowledge generators. But the question is, when we have new technology in the country, what is the extent of the absorptive capacity? It means that farms that are well prepared in terms of skilling, in terms of research and development, are more receptive to advanced knowledge. And this is what our study actually finds out. A farm that is not well prepared, even if there is an importation of inputs, this will not change its efficiency level at all. But a farm that is having highly skilled labor, a farm that undertakes research and development is much more likely to benefit from these knowledge generators. And then corruption and farm level productivity. Again, I mentioned about this paper with Michael Okumu, and the idea is that what is the effect of the bribe incidents? And what's the effect of the bribe tax? Bribe tax is the percentage of farm sales that is paid informally. And then time tax, percentage of top management time that is spent in negotiations. And in the model, we find that corruption dampens farm level productivity, but we failed to find support of the trade-off between bribe payments and the red tape. It means that, what does it mean? That the officials concerned deliberately make the process longer so as to attract the most productive farms that can pay for this. And then in the paper for corruption, bureaucracy, and export orientation, what we do, the question is, does corruption enhance exporting? And surprisingly, I would say not expected by theory, we find a positive impact. But when we try to explain it, what are we saying? That corruption is the second best alternative in the event that the public sector is inefficient. It is one way to circumvent the issues. And then corruption and the investment decision, thanks to still my colleague Okumu and Sandy Nathan here. The idea was looking at whether corruption enhances the decision to invest, but also the value of investment. What we see is that, yes, corruption enhances the decision to invest, but it dampens the value of investment. Okay, so the analysis at two levels. Decision to invest is enhanced, but the value of investment is dampened by this type of work. But also in view of COVID-19 and other issues. We looked at the ICT use, infrastructure quality, and farm productivity to understand farms, because farms have differences in productivity levels, and so want to understand the effect of infrastructure quality and the use of ICTs, and overall poor infrastructure quality, represented by power outages, dampens farm level productivity. And so if we are to go manufacturing, all these issues need to be fixed. But at the same time, there's what they call substitution effect of using generators. Because once power goes off, use generators, substitution effect, unfortunately, is positive for highly productive farms, but very negative for the starters and etc. And then we have a study that because of the financial constraints, so we are saying, what is the effect of interest rate, access to finance, and farm performance? We see that manufacturing farms in Uganda and Africa are credit constrained, and the high interest rate dampens productivity. And then, thanks to my PhD student from Makerere University Business School, Sulait Tumwine, can you kindly stand up? Sulait is my PhD student from Makerere University Business School. He finished his PhD and is now an associate professor. We did a study on the fact that if we have very high interest rate, what is driving interest rate? And by the way, this paper came through and had an award of 2019. And so we have been in a position to identify those key variables that government must influence to make sure that the financial constraints for business people is overcome. And actually that is the award to Tumwine, but because I was a supervisor, we appear down there with the other co-supervisors. Thank you to Tumwine, and I think in terms of mentoring, I have one associate professor over there. And in also trying to look at farm dynamics and the employment. This one I've already discussed. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I will not delay a lot on this. Farms in Africa create jobs, but also kill jobs at half the rate it was created. And this is the message. And in our paper, forthcoming from the European Journal of Economic Research, we have these facts stated. And thank you, Michael Kumo, here for the co-authorship. And also, I said before that for African countries with the significant technological gaps, our work shows that importing is a precondition for exporting. I know that this has to raise a number of other arguments from economists and other people, but for these countries, it is a precondition. And so, what are the recommendations? We need to invest in power infrastructure and make sure that the costs that come with the lost output, using of generators and etc. And then transport networks needs to be improved. Regulatory quality. I forgot to tell you in that paper of employment dynamics, we find that a farm that is situated in a very in a situation of poor rule of law is associated with dampened employment growth. And so it is not just mentioned, but it is an empirical fact. And also strengthen the rule of law. Then the financial constraints need to be tackled here. And yeah, in terms of future research, in 2 minutes I will be done. I think future research will be directed towards providing deeper insights in terms of farm level entry, survival, and exit. And we shall track patterns of farm entry, survival, and exit with the specific industries over time. And also we shall measure the impact of farm level entry and exits on farm level employment, productivity and growth. And also estimate the effect of various measures of the business environment on farm dynamics, entry, survival, and exit. And so because now data is available, the World Bank, thanks to the World Bank, data has been collected and the variable for COVID-19 has been captured almost all over the world because farm level data is collected all over the globe. And so we shall be able to understand the effect of pandemics like this on farm level productivity and whatever. And so actually, even if the data for Uganda is not yet out, for other countries, it is out and people can start doing papers, understanding empirically the impact of COVID-19 over here. And so we shall also do policy simulations, trying to understand, for example, if there is an increase in the tax rate and what will happen to output, employment, and productivity growth. I want to thank you for your patience. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chancellor, for the patience. The demand on your time is a lot. And the span of time since my PhD, a lot has gone on. And so summarizing it here, it takes a lot of time. And I was actually worried even before the start, whether I can be able to make it. But I wish to thank all of you for your patience. Thank you for honoring the invitation. Thank you very much.
Yes, 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 yes. Congratulations. A bit louder. Okay. Yes. When someone very intelligent like that speaks, you only say, "Glory be to God," and congratulations. Briefly, in his acknowledgement, there is to my master's degree supervisors, Professor Semogerere and Professor John Dumba Sentamu. Thanks for laying the first brick in the foundation for serious research in my career. I'm delighted to inform you that Professor John Dumba Sentamu, the former Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, has been following us online, and he was among the first online participants for this lecture. In a very special way, I really thank the team spirit in the College of Business and Management Sciences and EPRC. Thank you for turning up in good numbers. National Planning Authority, Ronald Kagwa, Sebuli Mekuraish, Mr. Kasule Samuel, Albert MCC, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, the Vice Guild President, His Excellency Nelson Sewanyana, the Guild Minister, Honorable Wamukota Alex, Deputy Registrars from the Department of the Academic Registrar, Mr. Charles Sentongo, Mr. Tomo Tim, Dr. Nema Abok, College of Education and External Studies, Mr. Joseph Ahaisiwe, Ministry of Finance, Isiko Mark, Office of the Auditor General, Engineer Edward Byaruhanga, UNRA, Mr. Jengo Akram, Agriculture, Masembe Joel Post Bank, Goret Selunkuma Stanbic Bank, Tony Ninsima Prudential Insurance Uganda. Thank you for turning up. To also our online audience, thank you for being with us. This event is being live streamed. We are live on COBAM's YouTube channel. We also ensure that we are in the digital spaces, Zoom, and we also have digital influencers, ensure that we are visible online. Now, it is very important when you speak to an audience that will be able to return home and explain to the rest of the people what took place physically and virtually. But also another important thing, it is good when you have the right audience. And like the chairperson of the Professorial Inaugural Committee indicated, he said he was pleased that when he looked at the audience, we had people who will ensure that we return here and then also have a series of professorial lectures. Now, just in 5 minutes, allow me to re-echo that message by reading some of these names. Those are some of the people who will be here. Fred Batenganya, College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Julius Omona, College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Dr. Matthias Mulumba, Dean School of Education, College of Education and External Studies. Dr. Glenn Godfrey, Dean School of Business. Dr. Grace Chibanja, Dean School of Psychology. Dr. Sam Siminyu from Research and Graduate Training. Professor Okero Obura from College of Computing and Information Sciences, Professor Antale Muhammad, Dean School of Physical Sciences, Dr. James Wokadala, Dean School of Statistics, Dr. Ronald Bisaso, College of Education and External Studies, Dr. Eric Awich, College of Humanities and Social Sciences, Professor Anthony Mugaga, College of Education and External Studies, Dr. Paul Bimoyinda, Deputy Principal, College of Education and External Studies, Dr. Sylvia Antonia Nanyonga Tamsuza, Chair, Department of Performing Arts and Film, Professor John Mango, College of Natural Sciences. I've read those names just to re-echo the message from Professor Elizabeth that one day we would also like you to invite us to your professorial inaugural lectures. Good luck. Thank you. Now, in 5 minutes, this is a very special day. The team from Performing Arts is set in 5 minutes to congratulate our Mugole, the one and only Professor Edward Bbaale.
Fena wetwala babagenyi era dera batala nabami amsa fena wetwala babagenyi kamera dera batala nabami sa fena wetwala babagenyi hima pora poro bulago sindele fena wetwala babagenyi era dera batala nabami fena wetwala babagenyi wekona kungoma bugande bweyagale fena wetwala babagenyi namoko yesala abalungi n'ababi omwoyo mulondo goyagala gukulondola. Mama namoko yesala abalungi n'ababi omwoyo mulondo goyagala gukulondola. Mama namoko yesala abalungi n'ababi omwoyo mulondo goyagala gukulondola.
Timely. Thank you very much. Our very energetic students from Performing Arts and Film, Makerere University. Professor Edward Bbaale, thank you so much for being a very good friend to the College of Education and External Studies, College of Natural Science, College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I've mentioned those colleges because the members of staff from those colleges have really turned up in good numbers. So that means, yes, please, corners, choose friendly colleges. Yes, members, when you do good, all you listened to the presentation and you listened to the words of wisdom and the agenda for research, then the best person to really recognize you on behalf of the rest of us should be at a level of Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs and also standing in for the Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe. Allow me to welcome Dr. Umar Kakumba, First Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic Affairs, Makerere University, a person of many hats, but let me also just say that he has a nurturing from the Department of the Academic Registrar, and he also has another hat from the College of Business and Management Sciences, so he's at home. Yes, you're welcome to deliver your congratulatory word and also present a befitting token to Professor Edward Bbaale.
Yeah, since I'm fairly distant from anybody else, let me remove this mask. Yeah, I want to take this opportunity this evening to once again appreciate the presence of the distinguished guests from all over the country, governmental agencies, and colleagues from Makerere in a special way. Let me take the opportunity to welcome Mama Bbaale, Tata Bbaale, Baganda ne bannyinaze ba Mwami Bbaale, omukyala n'abaana, and everyone else who has come really to grace this occasion. Yeah, distinguished officials of government who are here, members of the University Council, who have been attending online, joining us. The VC, Arias spoke to you. Members of management, quite a number of them have also been attending via online. It's only that Dr. Mayenda, I don't know why you did not give some little mention of those that were attending online. We had a very, very good presence. Professor Edward Bbaale and your family, want to thank you so much for this. The Principal of College Business and Management Sciences, the Chairperson and members of the Professorial Inaugural Lectures Committee, Professor Elizabeth, college principals, deans, the names have been read here. Maybe you forgot about Sedat. I see Dr. Kenneth Semogerere. You see, Dr. Kenneth Semogerere, once you don't, you're an academic. That's the reason why people have not recognized you, because you should have put on these gowns. And Dr. Semogerere is an OB of us with Professor Bbaale, only that Professor Bbaale joined Chivuli when we had left, but we joined together here same year. To me, it's in many ways that I'm very, very much highly elevated and so much happy for this occasion, because you realize that we have had only 12 professorial inaugural lectures. We have slightly above 90 professors at Makerere, which is no mean achievement. Because you look for this college alone, and many PhDs, many associate professors, probably around 130, and about 200 senior lecturers, which you will hardly find in any of this country. This has been quite illustrative, insightful, very comprehensive. I should say you have unpacked and unbundled the topic regarding the rethinking of growth in Africa, the farms and the business environment quality. It's only a pity that time cannot allow us to engage here, but I know the academia and many people from the practice and the technocrats from the relevant government agencies would have loved to really engage you. But the nature of this professorial lecture is basically to honor you for your erstwhile contribution to knowledge, to research, mentorship of the academia, the young people you've indicated to us, and associate professor as part of your package of those that you have mentored, but also the continuous contribution to the academia. I want to extend my warmest greetings to everybody who has honored this professorial inaugural lecture. I recognize those who have attended virtually. Like I said, there are very many of them. I should say that the professorial inaugural lecture is a prestigious and highly regarded public talk by an appointed professor in an academic institution. It is traditional, it's cultural in many reputable universities that at the level of Makerere University. You'd find this day, if you were in Cambridge, I happen to be an alumnus of the University of Cambridge, where I did my postdoc, but also Pretoria, where I earned my doctorate. Professorial lecture, it's a culture that has not really come in here. A professorial lecture, it would be an afternoon, it would be a holiday for the university, and then you go to the aula, which seats more than 2,000 people, fully packed, from governmental agencies, MDAs, the academia, the PhDs, and all other different universities packed in the aula to listen to the professorial lecture. It's a highly, highly revered culture. But I want to really take this opportunity to appreciate Professor Bbaale for coming in. And you've made this record. 5 months after your appointment, you come and deliver the professorial lecture. Congratulations to you. Yeah, like I have said, the College of Business and Management Sciences want to thank you. And Professor Bbaale want to thank you for this great highlight and also giving momentum and inspiration to the many young academics. I know Cobams now has over 40 PhDs. Professor Isal and you know very well, when we returned from studies, we hardly had about 10. Actually, School of Economics had 9. In the School of Business that I headed, had only 1 PhD, myself, and Muzei Wakazi, Dr. Sendiona. But today, the School of Business alone has over 20 PhDs, and the School of Economics, I think, is close to 40, thereby. So 1 college, now that is without the School of Statistics and Planning that forms the college, which has also packed a number of PhDs, especially from the Department of Population. I know the Dean, Dr. Okadala, is aware. But why am I saying this? I'm saying this is because of the good inspiration that the three of us, Elia Hisali, Tom Mwebaze, Edward Bbaale, and very, very few, about 10, gave to many of our colleagues. And this inspiration is really echo. You can see it, that you have many people like Okumu. He has all the associated requirements actually to be a full professor. He has, when you look at the publications that Okumu Ibra has published and along in the area, it's very, very amazing. And there are many who are doing great works here. So I want to thank you, Professor Bbaale, for that great mentorship and also demonstration of the high caliber of research, of engagement in the area of economics. We also pay a special tribute to our mentor, Professor John Dumba Sentamu. For long, he was the only professor, he was the only doctor, and then there were many assistant lecturers and lecturers. But he did great investment in supporting many to go for scholarship when he was part of the leadership of the African Economic Research Consortium, the AERC, which has borne all of these fruits. You cannot talk about any PhD in economics that doesn't have a hand of John Dumba Sentamu. So ladies and gentlemen, you'll agree that Professor Bbaale's inaugural lecture on rethinking growth in Africa, farms and business environment quality is very, very topical today and has provided very, very important knowledge. If you have not been very, very attentive and maybe following up, there is a full publication here that was organized by the Professorial Committee under the office of the DVCAA that I had managed to put up this. I request that these books are distributed and they will be in the library, they will be in the book banks here as pieces of review for reference for many of you. So don't miss out, don't feel that it has been so hard. We actually cut him because of time. Our worry is people need to go back very far away. But this would have been a full packed afternoon just to congratulate and also to give credence to the works of Edward Bbaale. But this booklet is here, it's a publication, you'll consult it for many other opportunities. So this comes in at a very, very, very important time. And notably, his lecture is in line with the theme of the third National Development Plan, which relates on sustainable industrialization for inclusive growth, employment, sustainable wealth creation. Professor Bbaale has highlighted that the overall industrial sector growth in Africa continues to fall behind the GDP growth, and that the manufacturing sector in Uganda has marginal contribution to GDP at 16% as of 2020. He has also argued for more focus on the microeconomic policy environment where business firms operate. This is expected to improve on the success of the National Development Plan 3. There are many issues I have been recording and following up, but time cannot allow. And in this kind of a lecture, unfortunately, we don't give opportunity to a lot of engagement and asking questions. But I know after the inaugural lecture, that's why it's called a professorial inaugural lecture. It is a precursor to many lectures that Professor Bbaale will expect you to give and engage and integrate the knowledge and contribution of the various academia. So we'll expect you continuously to engage these debates. I had a few with my colleague, Professor Hisali. Very, very, very captivating, but also very provoking. The issue of corruption and how its pros and cons to growth, and also whether it addresses employment, whether it's entirely negative. Of course, there are many people who have had opinion that corruption is good, it can spur some level growth in the farms, but that is for many other days. The whole idea about the service sector versus the agriculture sector and the industrial sector, again, it is a continuing debate. Of course, there are many schools of thought who say that, no, indeed, the service sector, although it is growing faster than agriculture, it may not be entirely bad. It could have, versatility in attracting and spurring other growth and maybe employment and what have you, especially the tourism as a service sector. So there are many debates. So I'm just trying to put a hint that there are there is a lot of call for continuous lectures after this inaugural lecture that you have made. As you are all aware, COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted livelihoods across all countries and affected the global economic growth more than experienced before in any century. The theme of the inaugural lecture is therefore been very, very critical, very timely, giving quite impressive insights on how farms can be used to propel overall economic growth in the midst of shifting global challenges and new technological innovations. The lecture has also been ably reflected to Makerere's 2020-2030 strategic plan and the strategic direction where we earmark unlocking and optimizing the potential of the university as a knowledge hub. And through basically research, because through this he has demonstrated the publications, the research in various areas of economics. I once again want to applaud you, my brother, Professor Edward Bbaale, for the passion that you've exhibited in pursuit and the perpetuation of knowledge in the field of economics. I also congratulate the entire COBAMS that has nurtured you through all the years. And I would also want to use this opportunity in a very, very special way to congratulate Professor Eli Sabiti. Can we put our hands together for Professor Sabiti? As you heard from him, Professor Sabiti has rendered very, very, very distinguished service to this university, spanning over 35 years. Being a professor, retired at 60, got post-retirement contract for the next 10 years, which he has served up to 70. Professor Sabiti should have had his retirement. Of course, he had it earlier, but we want to thank you so much that you accepted to continue. Said, no, please continue with organizing this because it is part of the team that you have led for a long time. His committee, his team has a number of people, Professor Yetkiza Mayanja, Professor Kivinga, and a number of them that, retired earlier, but you've managed to maintain the momentum. I want to thank you also in a special way that you've heeded to my request of crafting a policy, a framework that can be able to inform and institutionalize the professorial lecture. That history, that culture that I have, shared with you of Cambridge, of Pretoria, of wherever, we want to institutionalize it in Makerere. And we need this policy framework. So the members of Senate who are here, my brother, Professor Kileng, Professor Antale, Professor Visaso, just know that this is coming to Senate. So we must fast track it so that everybody will be given within 1 year. After assuming professorship, you are given 1 year to deliver an inaugural lecture. It's a very, very simple thing. Share the knowledge of. Yes, and also for those that are retiring to offer the valedictory lecture that you talked about as a way of saying, these are rituals. You will see these rituals. That's why many of you might not have noticed it. We are wearing these gowns, but have you wondered why we have not put on the caps? Just look at all people putting on gowns. We don't have these caps. It's only him who has it. Now that's a ritual. Okay, that's a ritual and it's a honor that today is his day, and that's why he has the opportunity once in a lifetime to bring the family and the parents and everyone else to acknowledge and recognize him. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I don't intend to take much more time than I have taken, but I want to say that going forward, we expect that there will be more professorial inaugural lectures, given that Makerere now has more than, like I've said, 90 full professors. So the Professorial Inaugural Organizing Committee has prepared a policy document, I have said, which we shall enact into in the next Senate, and which should also be able to encourage quite more. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, once again, I want to thank you for this time. I want to convey to you all greetings from the senior management of Makerere University, the council, the members of Senate. We want to thank you, those of you who have been here. Very, very many deans have attended this virtually and also physically. And many of those that have graced the occasion from the governmental agencies, the private sector, and wherever. I thank you so much. And I will just beg that we take just a few minutes to recognize, to go through the phase of recognition and also, giving the awards and the from Makerere University. Yeah, so at this juncture, I think I do it straight away to save time. Permit me to take the opportunity. Now, this is a very, very wonderful placard. Just like the gowns we wear, you cannot, the rich men who own arcades in town. If you saw one of them coming with this gown and wearing it, these rich guys, you know them. People will say, please run after him, take him to Utah, something is happening. You get that? Abagaga bo mu kibuga bwe mubalaba be mmanyi tata Bbaale mama Bbaale tebayinza kwambala gandula lino. Abalina akeedi, abalina ebizimbe be tumanyi abagagga be mulaba akeedi zonna tebasobola kwambala gandula. Era singa omu kabe kasinge yetantala n'alyambala ne mulaba mu kibuga Kampala. Bo bennyini abooluganda bwe n'emikwano gye be basooka okugaba nange mutuyambe gundi alabika atuuseeko ekikyamu ku mutwe. Bayinza okudduka okwagala okukola ki? Okuga nti ndowooza waliwo ekikyamu ekikoze eki. So lino eddugandula lya bbeeyi. Enkofiira ya bbeeyi olwaleero ffenna tetuzambadde wadde tuli entitled okuzambala. Naye ate kino kya bbeeyi nnyo. Kino abagagga balina akeedi eza biliyoni ne biliyoni z'essente tayinza kukyegulira n'akiteeka mu nju ye n'akikola ki. Ate naawe mwennyini toyinza kukwata mu nsawo balina ssente nnyini ne bakigula. University y'ekikuwa. University y'ekikuwa ng'esiimye okutakabanako n'emirimu gyo gy'okoledde ekisaawe ky'ebyenjigiriza. Kakati ako mbadde nina okavuunuulira kino ekirabo University y'e Makerere, mu Luzungu kisoma Makerere University, presented to Professor Edward Bbaale in commemoration of a professorial inaugural lecture entitled Rethinking Growth in Africa, Farms and the Business Environment Quality. Today, 17th December 2021, Makerere University We Build for the Future, signed Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, Vice Chancellor. So ndoza tujja kuddako wano kano kalime tusiikiriza. So njagala kutwala omukisa guno. Mu ngeri y'emu nga ako kaziza wabbali ngenda kwongera ne certificate eno. Eno naye esayiningiddwa Vice Chancellor. Yeah, we can do something last, I mean, again. Do you want to? Yes. All right.
But I can't request you to remain there.
Okay.
Congratulations. Now, if you listened attentively, Professor Elizabeth said, this marks my last obligation as chairperson of the Professorial Inaugural Committee. That was a very touching message. And so the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University has, in the same spirit, a surprise for Professor Elizabeth. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, would like you, Professor Elizabeth, always to remember the good work that you did for this university and the Professorial Inaugural Committee. So I'm honored to invite Professor Humal Kakumba to read this message from the Vice Chancellor and then present it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Rita. Once again, our colleagues, you know, like that illustrious career in the academia and contributing to the academia, Professor Elizabeth has stood out prominently in supporting and mentoring many. But for this very, very event, he's been leading it and he's given his all energy towards this. So I want to recognize you. There is this placard, appreciation award to you, which reads Makerere University Appreciation Award to Professor Eli N. Sabiti, Chairperson, Professorial Inaugural Committee, from 2007 to 2021. You can mark the years. How many are those? And we did not find any impression to create any change to his committee because we felt that he has been doing a great job. So in appreciation of your distinguished and dedicated service to Makerere University, your leadership and devotion played an integral role in the committee's success to date. Dated 17th December 2021, we build for the future, signed Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, Vice Chancellor. So we are closing it. Thank you.
That's all I can say. Congratulations, congratulations. In the interest of time, allow me to read how we are going to proceed. We have on our program a photo session, but we are going to manage it a bit very fast inside here to save time. Then we will, immediately after the photo session that is going to be managed inside here, we'll have the anthems, one stanza per anthem. And thereafter, the anthems, we will take our seats and allow the procession, the people who came with the procession, we will allow the procession to leave first, then the rest of us will follow. So, photo moment, where do they come in? I'm being advised, Prof, that you stand in front here. First, let's have the 4 people here. And then I'm going to invite, as we do that, ngenda kusabako ekifaananyi ekisooka kakibeeremu abakulu bano. Bwe kimala ngenda kusaba n'obuwombeefu bungi nnyo maama, taata, abaana n'abazadde, nammwe mutambule mpola mpola muggyeko eno waggulu mu kifaananyi ekyo. As we prepare for that photo, the third photo will have all the people present here wearing academic gowns. That is the third photo, and we will conclude. Even when you're wearing a mask, we can, okay, but then don't talk kindly. Ekifaananyi ekiddako mbadde nsaba bamaama, omukyala, abaana, muggyeko wano waggulu. Kati maama, bataata, Abooluganda mujjeko wano waggulu. Olunaku luno lwa njawulo eri abazadde tubwebaza okusomesa. To all our virtual participants, it's now time for the photo session as we come to the end of the ceremony. This is a very special day for us at Makerere University, this being an academic institution. Mu kifaananyi kino mulimu abazadde Okay, bwe kiba kiri bwe kityo katusooke tukole bwe tuti badde nsaba katusooke tufunemu abazadde maama oba ne taata, then bwe tukimala ne bana abalala muddeewo. Kati katusooke tusabe bamaama, taata. The photo crew kindly take that photo. Olunaku lwa ssanyu, maama ne taata tubeebaza okuweerera omwana oyo. Thank you very much for that. Kati mbadde nsaba era n'abooluganda abalala abatabadde mu kifaananyi kiri naye nga bali wano nabo, kati mbadde nsabako abakibaddemu bo basooke baveewoko ne bano abali wano bayongere ku kifaananyi ekyo. Then as that photo is being taken, waliyo kono. Then ekiddako kyaba members bonna of academic staff. Members of the academic staff who are physically present, you'll be, and you're wearing an academic gown. Kindly join us here. All members of staff physically present, wearing an academic gown, kindly join this photo. Members of staff, I'm kindly requesting you stand here. Let the children join. I didn't know that you hadn't joined. Come and please join the photo. And where is mom? Your mom? Okay. That's with the children. Academic members of staff, please join. Kindly make sure you're smiling on behalf of all the academic staff of Makerere University. They are quite a number. Professor Klenk, there is a special request that you smile on our behalf. Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, let us all rise. And like I said, after the anthems, what is going to follow, we will allow the academic procession to leave first, and then the rest of us will follow. But just before the anthem starts, Mr. Okumu or Dr. Okumu, are you in the house? Okumu? Okumu, I think he's outside, okay. The family, because Professor Bbaale kept mentioning your name, Okumu, the family members were requesting that they see you, so kindly raise your hand, they'll follow you. Thank you so much. They requested to attach the face to the name. Yes, we are now rising for the anthems. Thereafter, we'll allow the procession to leave first, then the rest of us will follow. Let us take our seats. The rest of us, let us take our seats. Now everything is in reverse order. The Vice Chancellor first. The Vice Chancellor will follow. Okay, please. Yes, that's now time for the procession to leave. Congratulations. Indeed, Katonda Bbaale. And we've ended this event successfully. To all our online participants, thank you so much for following us throughout the session. A special thank you to also members of staff from DICT, Makerere University Public Relations Office, Communication Office for the College of Business and Management Sciences, and the Institute Odell College of Education and External Studies, Dr. Godfrey Mayende and the entire team from the College of Education and External Studies. Thank you so much for managing Zoom, and also the team from DICS for ensuring that this event is visible online. Congratulations. Now to the entire media team, thank you for covering this occasion, and kindly ensure that you get in touch with Miss Betty Chakwa, Communication Officer, College of Business and Management Sciences. Good luck, best wishes. May the good Lord bless you all. Bye-bye.